Hello everybody, welcome back. I'll just find my lesson 4 PowerPoint. Okie dokie, hope you're all well. Hope that you have got your fairies and alchemist notes in front of you. You're also going to need today either some lined paper or a Word document open, depending on whether you're working physically or online. Just make sure that you're all prepared and ready to go. So let's start ourselves straight off. I would like to remind you what a P's paragraph is, okay? So what do you think the P-E-A-Z stands for? I nearly gave you an answer there. What does it stand for? Okay, if you have only done P paragraphs, that's absolutely fine. Just write down what you think the P stands for and then maybe have a guess at the Z. Okay, the second thing I would like you to do is to write down as many different comparative words as you can think of. Okay, so I'll give you 3 to start you off. Similarly, in contrast, however. Okay, so there's 3 to start you off. See how many you can find. So you're answering those first 2 questions in the next 10 minutes, and then join me back here once you have completed that. Okay. Okay, everybody, hopefully you have written down what you think a P stands for, and we'll come to that in just a moment. But you've also written down as many comparative words as you can think of. These are the comparative words that I came up with. So we've got ones that are looking at things that are similar, and ones that are looking at things that are different. Okay, so if you're writing about a similarity, you'd use some of these words. If you are looking at a difference, you would look at some of these words. Okay, so don't bother writing every single one of them down. Perhaps just make sure that you've got 5 or 6 comparative words down for each, and then we'll move forward. Okay. Okay, so this is the question that we are going to be answering. Compare the way the writers present the theme of the fantastical. So that should be fairly straightforward because both of the poets discuss that theme quite openly, okay? So you don't have to go digging around for it or anything like that. It's quite an obvious theme, okay? And this is what the P's stands for, okay? So you've got your point, evidence, zoom, and analysis. I am sure that the majority of you got that absolutely spot on. Okay, what I've done here is I've written down what that means, okay, the instruction. So if I say I want you to zoom in on whatever, this is what it means. Okay, so I'll go through that in a second. And then I've given you some sentence starters, and I've also given you a commentary. Now, what I would normally do is I would annotate this on the board as we were going along, but because I can't do that, I've written a commentary, and that will become clear in a little bit of a moment. Okay, so let's start off with our point. Okay, so in order to write a point, you need to reword and answer the question. So compare the way the writers present the theme of the fantastical. You would say in both poems, the poets present the theme of the fantastical by. Okay, so that's starting you off, and then you would fill in that blank there. Okay, so my commentary here is me telling you what's good about this. So straight away, you are comparing using the word both. Okay, so straight away, you would get a tick and a mark for that because you're starting to compare both these poems. Okay. By using the keyword fantastical, that's what the question is asking you about, that's the main theme that we are talking about. By using that in your first sentence, you are showing the examiner or your marker or your teacher that you have a clear focus on the question and that you know exactly what it is that you are talking about. Okay, so by including both those words, you are already starting to pick up marks, and we haven't even finished the first sentence yet. Okay. The next point is to include your evidence. So that's a quote to support your ideas. So I said earlier in this series of lessons, I said you can have whatever ideas that you come up with, and they can be completely different to my ideas, but as long as you base them in a quotation from the text, in evidence from the text, then you can't be wrong. Okay, where you can go wrong is by simply not including a quote. Okay, so you must include a quote to support your ideas. Okay, and I've got an example here. For example, in the fairies, Allingham states, "for fear of little men." So I've included my quote there. Okay. Here you say which of the poems you are talking about. So by stating that you are talking about the fairies, you are making it really clear and really easy for your examiner to understand what you are talking about. Because we are comparing two poems, it's really easy to get confused between poem 1 and poem 2. So by naming the poem, by saying the fairies or the alchemist, you are signposting to the examiner which poem you are talking about, and it's less likely that they're going to misunderstand what you are trying to say. Okay, you include your quote, and you always refer to the writer by their surname. Okay, so in this instance, either Allingham or Owen. You do not refer to them as William or Gareth because you do not know them personally. These writers are probably long dead. Okay, you will never meet them. So because you don't know them personally, you're keeping that formal tone. Okay, Allingham or Owen. Okay. The next part is your Zoom, and this is where some of you might not have included this, but this is where we can gain more marks and can start to develop and challenge ourselves a little bit more to start picking up on those success criteria at GCSE. Okay, so you need to zoom in on language and structure and subject terminology. And that should be really, really easy because we have already annotated these poems really, really well. Okay, we've already highlighted the difference between language and structure. We've talked a little bit about form as well. So it's just using that subject terminology, that vocabulary that can gain you those marks. Okay, so my example is, here Allingham uses alliteration to illustrate the narrator's emotion at being confronted by the supernatural. Okay. So I've identified the technique, alliteration, that the poet is using, and I've begun to explain why I think it's being used. Okay, you might have a completely different idea of why they have used alliteration, and that's fine as long as you can base it in the evidence, as long as you can justify what it is that you are trying to say. Okay, so think about what they have used and why they have used it, and then we come on to our analysis, which is the effect on the reader. Okay, the reader is engaged with the poem as they imagine what it might be like to live in a society that fears little men and might not be able to get food as a result. We might also imagine whether we would feel the same way as the narrator does in their position. So when I am reading that quote, "for fear of little men, we daren't go hunting for fear of little men," I imagine what it would be like to have to go to the supermarket and be worried about being attacked by little men or pinched and prodded and stolen from by these tricksy little fairies. Okay, so I don't have to worry about that, but I imagine what it might be like. Okay, I don't go hunting anymore. We've moved past that, but if I need to provide for my family, then how would I cope in that situation? So it engages me by getting me to ask these questions, by asking me to use my imagination of what it would be like. Okay, so this focuses on the effect on the reader and is super easy because the reader is you. Okay, it's just what you think. It's how you feel, what it makes you think of, what your interpretation or opinion is. Okay, so people tend to get stuck on analysis and say, "Oh, I don't know what the effect is on the reader." Well, it's just what the effect is on you. How does it make you think or feel about this situation? Okay. All right then. So what I would like you to do now is to pick either the fairies or the alchemist and write one piece paragraph following the outline that I have just talked through. Okay, so you can use the sentence starters if you want to, or if you are feeling up for a challenge, if you're feeling a little bit confident, then by all means don't bother with the sentence starters and just write it from your point of view. As long as you are including the point, the evidence, the zoom and the analysis, you can't go far wrong. Okay, by all means use the commentary to check that you are picking up those marks, follow the instructions and include the success criteria, but only really use the sentence starters if you are struggling, if you're finding it difficult to start a particular section. Okay, so one paragraph on either the fairies or the alchemist, and I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do this. Okay, so just pause the video for 15 minutes, set yourself your timer, and try to follow that outline for your piece paragraph, and I'll meet you back here in 15. Okay, off you go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you have got your first piece paragraph completed, okay? Now I would like you to pick one of the comparison words that we talked about right at the very beginning, okay? So you need to decide whether you are going to talk about a similarity or a difference between these two poems, okay? Have a look at our grid that we completed last lesson about the similarities and the differences, and decide which one you want to talk about, okay? After you have decided on your comparison word, then you need to pick the poem that you haven't already talked about. So if you've just talked about the fairies in your first paragraph, you're going to pick the alchemist and vice versa, okay? So you're talking about the poem that you've not yet talked about, and you're going to write a second piece paragraph following exactly the same outline as you have just done for the first one, but you're going to be talking about the second poem. So if you have a look at the waggle, which I've got on the board, right up until similarly, that is exactly what we have got in our sentence starters up at the top, okay? But from similarly, this is where I've added my second piece, okay? So I say similarly, in The Alchemist, Owen uses the character of the alchemist to present the theme of the fantastical. I'm still following those instructions. I'm still focusing on the question. I'm still making sure that I'm picking up those marks. He states, they say that his furnace turns iron and bronze into pots of glistening gold. Here the alliteration also seeks to engage the reader as they imagine what it might be like to have this power and what they might do with it. Okay, so I've talked about alliteration here, and I've also talked about alliteration here, hence why I've talked about the similarity, okay? But if you are talking about language and you want to say similarly, but you've not got two of the same, that's fine. If you're talking about something that is different about the two poems, obviously you would change your comparison word, okay? I've still got my focus on the reader at the end, my thoughts and feelings about this quote that I've picked. Okay, so I'm following exactly the same structure as I did before. I'm just adding my second paragraph with a comparison phrase in the middle there. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 15 minutes to write that second piece paragraph and put it all together so you've got one big comparison paragraph here. Okay, and I'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you have got that one big piece paragraph completed now. So you've got one piece on the fairies combined and smooshed together with one piece from the alchemist. So you've got one overarching comparison paragraph, okay? If you have time and you are feeling really confident and you're wanting to stretch yourself and challenge yourself, I would like you to have a go at 2 more paragraphs, okay? So you're going to complete 3 overall paragraphs in total, okay? You can use this waggle as a template. You can use what we've talked about so far, but I want you to look back in your notes, in your comparison table, and pick 2 other things that you're going to talk about. So if you've talked about similarities in this paragraph, make sure you talk about a difference as well, so that you are showing a balanced argument about these 2 poems. Okay, ordinarily at this point, this is where I would ask for any questions, but because we're not able to do that at the minute, if you are struggling, then just pause the video here. Send me an email, explain what it is that you're struggling with, ask me any questions, and perhaps pick this lesson up at a later date, okay? I understand that it's a lot and that it's quite tricky, you know, the first time we're getting into this, especially as we're doing it online. But if you feel really confident, if you feel like, yeah, I've done this a million times, I'm great with piece paragraphs, then you smash it and carry on going from where you are, okay? Once you have written your 3 comparative paragraphs, the last thing that I would like you to do before you submit your work to me is to highlight and label where you have included the success criteria, okay? So the success criteria are, where is your point, where is your evidence, where is your Zoom, and where is your analysis, okay? I will not be accepting any work that does not highlight and label the success criteria, and I'll tell you for why. Because if you write me an essay or an answer to this question, that's all well and good. But if you haven't followed the instructions and included the success criteria, then you aren't going to pick up the marks. It's really as simple as that. Okay, so you need to take responsibility. You need to take the time to proofread your own work, to highlight and label where you have included those things that are going to pick you up the marks. Okay, it might be that when I come to read it that you've got it wrong. That's not an issue. Okay, getting it wrong or making a mistake isn't a problem. I'm absolutely happy to sort that out with you. Okay, what I have issue with is when somebody submits work that isn't completed, that isn't to the best of their ability, that they haven't really tried with. Okay, so I'm hoping that that won't be any of you. Okay, so just submit me the best that you can do and we'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so I'm going to give you however long is left of this lesson before you've got another one to go to, just to get as far with that as possible. Okay, but it's really important that at a minimum standard you've got your first paragraph done and that you have highlighted and labelled the success criteria. If you get a chance to do your other 2 paragraphs, then that is absolutely fantastic. Okay, and I'll be putting some achievement points on the system for you. Okay, so I'll meet you back here in just a minute when you have done as much work as you feel you are able to do. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening today. I hope that's been really useful. I hope you found it engaging and fun and entertaining. I know that I've enjoyed really looking at these poems. I like looking at things that are a little bit more fantastical, especially at this time, a bit of escapism, while still basing it in learning. I think that's really wonderful. So what I want you to do now is I do want each and every one of you to submit me the work that you have completed this week. Okay, so I want to see all of your notes, your annotations. I want to see your grid completely filled in, and I want to see your final essay on these 2 poems. Okay. Once again, my email's on there for you, so you can use that to send me photographs or attach Word documents or whatever it might be. And again, if for whatever reason you're finding it difficult to send me what you have done, please just send me an email. Just say what you have done, how you found it, what you thought, and I can email you back. And then at least I know that you've done it. Okay. Otherwise, I will be making a mark about who has completed what, to what standard, and I will be submitting that to your head of year and to your form tutors as well. So perhaps a negative for you guys is that we are in more recent contact with your parents at the moment, so that we'll get home in our conversations with how you are doing. So please make sure that you are completing all work to the very best of your ability. Other than that, thank you so much for your emails, for your comments, for your questions. I really appreciate hearing from you all. Thank you so much for trying your best. This is the first week that we've done this, so any issues we will seek to rectify next week. Okay, so thanks very much. Please be in touch. Enjoy your weekend, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. All right, thanks very much. See you later. Bye.